On this episode, I interview one of our very own publishers in the Dallas market, Mr. Jordan Espeseth. Jordan had a very slow start in the beginning and really struggled when he moved to Dallas from Minnesota, but figured it out and is now top 5 in the company. We talk about overcoming obstacles and what goes into that mindset. He ends with a pretty epic tale of traveling to a jungle with his dad and drinking tobacco juice and what it did for his mindset around activity and just doing the work. Enjoy. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey. As always, wanted to thank you, the listener, for sharing this show because we are now a top 5% global podcast and rising the ranks. And mostly it's because of great guests we have like Mr. Jordan Espeseth. Jordan is an area director of ours, a publisher in Texas, owning or co-owning 4 different publications in the Dallas metro area. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ram.
Jordan, you're a personal friend, and I'm going to try to keep this professional. We might giggle a little bit, but your story is one of my favorites that we have in Real Producers. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to lead up to where you are now. I know you're almost on like a semi-vacation up in your cabin in Minnesota, and that's where the story starts. You've got the girl dad hat on, a new dad. How old's your baby girl?
Almost 7 months.
7 months. So Jordan literally had to clean up his shirt because she had get slobber on it before the show started. That's a fun time for dad. 6 months is when they start really engaging with dad. And so
life's a little different now.
So you're in your happy place. You're up in your cabin, and this is where the story really starts, at least for the Real Producer side, because originally you were supposed to take over a territory in Minnesota, Minneapolis, that was really close to you. And because of some errors in communication, ultimately that just wasn't offered to you. So you had a decision to make. And it was, do I not go forward with the Real Producer franchise, or do I move for the opportunity? And you did something that has historically been one of the most challenging things in this company, which is move across the country and completely start a new territory in a foreign land where you don't speak the language and don't know anybody. And everyone in Dallas was really confused about your Minnesota accent, the abouts, the begs.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
But you figured it out. And so I want to talk through overcoming obstacles with you on this show because I know your story, and it seems like both your personal story and your professional story are aligned in this. Talk to me about what you were doing before, because here's where I think it's unique. You were not being paid what you were worth in your previous role and the things that you were doing because you were hustling, you were good at it, and you were making the sales, but it didn't reflect how valuable you were in the basically the commissions that you were getting at your previous jobs. And so Real Producers, I felt like, fit into the hustle and the smarts that you brought, and eventually got you to where you're now top 10 in the company for Real Producers. So flash back to when you first started, you kind of got your teeth knocked in when you moved to Dallas. Can you tell us the story before you got into Real Producers, where you started?
Well, yeah. So from age of 3, I started racing snowmobiles. So I have a sport called snowcross is what I was involved in. I did that from 3 to 17, and I was a semi-pro on the national circuit. My goal was always to make it to X Games. And I was close to qualifying, but I decided to retire after my junior year of high school. But that was my entire life. So that was a big shock for me, trying to do normal senior year, play football and hang with people, because racing took up my whole life. I ended up going to college for 7 years, worked for 7 months with my degree, and then I went entrepreneurial. And so, that was great. Probably could have saved a little time and money, but here we are. And then, as you alluded to, I tried a bunch of different entrepreneurial stuff. But the year before I moved to Dallas to start Real Producers, in 2017, I was traveling around the country speaking at pretty much every real estate event that you could possibly think of. At the time, I was helping agents with their marketing with a company called Send Out Cards. It's a network marketing company. But we were kind of taking almost like a Cutco approach to send out cards, but also just traveling across the nation while doing it. And, after about a year of Airbnbs and Priceline hotels and life on the road, I was a little bit over that lifestyle, if you will. And it was really good. Like, I was 27 at the time, and I enjoyed it. It was a buddy and I that were doing it, and I thought I was making pretty decent money at the time, to be transparent. Even though we were like barely covering our bills, but I thought it was great. And but yeah, I was looking for something different because that lifestyle was not sustainable. And I was actually at an event in Topeka, Kansas, where I met Diane Collins, who's involved with and still is involved with St. Louis Real Producers, and that whole, I forget how many pubs Nick and those guys have now, like 7 or something like that. But she was involved with St. Louis Real Producers, and she was sponsoring for Cutco, and we met, and I loved what she said, because one of the things that I had learned from traveling around the country and speaking at all these realtor events is that it's extremely easy to get in front of real estate agents. Like, if that's someone's goal, is just to get in front of realtors, that's like the easiest thing to do. Especially, like, I'm in DFW, right? There's 60,000 licensed real estate agents in DFW, approximately. And about half of those people don't do anything. And so of the 30,000 that produce on some level, the grand majority of the production is done by the top, 5%. But one of the things that I had learned while sponsoring all these events, I mean, I was sponsoring happy hours, team meetings, golf outings, expos, Keller Williams Bold classes. I mean, if there was a realtor event, we were sponsoring it. And I was spending all my marketing dollars, all my time, following up, building relationships, only to find out that the agents that I was even communicating with do, 0 to 1 homes a year, and weren't even a great fit for what I was offering. And so that was super disheartening. And so when Diane said, "Hey, Real Producers, the essence of what we do is create a community around the highest producing agents and the best businesses in the market," I was like, where do I sign? Like, I fell in love with the concept of it. And then I think I talked to Nick first, and then shortly after, you and I had the conversation, and it was such a foreign concept to me. I said, publisher of a magazine, like, what? It didn't sit well in my brain, but I love the idea of it. I've always been someone that probably operates on the fringe a little bit. And so I like the uniqueness of it. And I don't think my parents did. They always thought I should just they're happy now, but they were like, why don't you just, cause I was trying all these different things. I think they were like, I wish you would have just stayed in healthcare, but, get a real job. But, I got the most real job in the world.
So you made the decision to get in, and this is where it gets interesting to me, because Real Producers was already a proven concept at the time. I think you were in the first 30 launches, but we had 20 or so people who were doing it and doing it well. And so we had a makeup of a successful person, much like you would if you're in real estate or if you're in any type of contracting, like any business that you own. You have the makeup of a top producer, and you fit that mold. You could make the sales, you were likable, you had all the makeups of the same things that made our people successful, and you had already been selling a product to realtors. So seemingly was a good fit. And then so what happened next was when you moved to Dallas and burned the boats and literally, signed a rent deal, you went, what is it, 0 for 40 sales appointments? And just to put things in perspective, like, that's not like calling 40 people to sell a house and no one's ready to buy or sell a house. Within our company, we have about a 20% sales ratio when you're first starting. So that was within the first 10 appointments, you should be experiencing 2 sales if you're calling on the right people. And you were calling on the right people. So something just wasn't adding up. And this is where it gets interesting to me, because this is where you have a recruiting process and you have someone that fits the mold, and you're trying to figure out why it's not working. We'll have this happen from time to time. We're 10 years old now, and we'll recruit some realtors in markets. And realtors are, you would think, the best people, because they're used to getting handling objections. They're used to rough months, weeks, months at a time without a paycheck, all those kinds of things. And yet they've experienced success at a certain level to where when they start to see a little bit of friction and no success for a little while, they don't know how to handle those feelings. And so you experience a lot of rejection in a short amount of time. And I want you to walk us through what was happening there, how you ultimately overcame it.
Yeah, it was, you were my coach in that process. And so, even you, I think looking back, it was like, everyone from the outside's like, I don't know, like, is this guy going to do it? Like, what's going on here? I think we're all, including myself, doubting it. But
Never a doubt. Never a doubt.
I'm a big, Tony Robbins says we're motivated by pain or pleasure. And typically pain is a stronger motivator. And so I like definitely had like my vision of like how great it would be to be a successful publisher of a Real Producers magazine. And I was seeing what you guys were doing, and that was very compelling to me. But honestly, I agree with Tony that pain is a stronger motivator, because I was so afraid of if this wouldn't have worked out. I had tried and failed a lot after healthcare. I'd tried and failed at a lot of different, entrepreneurial opportunities, if you will. And I had friends and family that were like, dude, come on. And even I was like, oh, dude, come on. Like, what's going to happen here? Like, I kind of felt like this was my last hurrah, if you will. And I was so afraid of the idea of like failing that, and going back to, not that there's wrong with like the healthcare job that I had. I have lots of people are, I think, meant to be in certain lanes, but I just, the thought of it, of the 9 to 5 and like what I'd be doing, for me, it was a prison. And I know I would have went to a very dark place if that was the direction I had to go. And that would have been my fallback, was to go back to that. And I was so deathly afraid of that. And we can get into it if we want, but in college, I dealt with an enormous amount of anxiety and depression, and was in a very dark place. And I, through personal development and meditation and all these different things, was able to kind of pull myself out of that. But I was still kind of coming through that, if you will, in 2018 when I was 28 years old. And so it wasn't like I was like free and clear. I hadn't met Jesus yet. Right. And so, which, by the way, shout out, you were one of the people that definitely helped me along that process. So thank you for that. Didn't realize at the time, but I definitely had a God-sized hole within me. And, that was that's a whole nother thing later down. But at the time when I was 28, I was still in a very vulnerable, volatile headspace, and the idea of like going back to me was like the difference of heaven and hell. It was like, that's a bad comparison, obviously, but it's like, this is where I want to go. This is the future. But like, if I go this way, it wasn't that I was just going back to the job. I knew what it meant for like my mental health. I knew what it meant for like where I was going to be.
You've mentioned a couple times that your friends and family were saying things, or maybe hinting at, can you just, we laugh about it, but can you just get a real job? Or are you going to figure out, can you just go back to healthcare? Like, they care about you. And so they're pushing you in a certain direction that makes sense for them. But you had this entrepreneurial itch that you thought you were called to do it. And so do you feel like that anxiety that you had within you was built up from the identity that you had, an identity crisis where it's like, I want to be this thing and people aren't getting it, and they're actually right now, and I can't figure out why? Is that what was happening?
I definitely think that was part of it. And to be fair, like my family's always been very supportive and stuff, but it was kind of just like, the eyes, like, what are you like, I guess. Yeah. Like when I told my dad I was moving to Texas to start a magazine, he didn't talk to me for 3 weeks. Real story. And I love my dad and we're super close and all that. But
he was hurt and he was hurt for you at that time. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I definitely think it was like, I feel like this is like, I remember being so inspired the first time I heard about entrepreneurship. It was actually the first time I had heard about like an MLM. It was World Ventures. And I just fell in love with the idea of like entrepreneurship. I just like, and I was like 20 at the time. I remember just being like enamored by it. Like, just like kid at a candy store. Like, this is it, and if I could ever attain something like that. And like, I didn't know that there was something outside of a 9 to 5. I thought like that was for those people. And then everybody else on the planet does this. And so like, but I was like, I felt so called to that. But yeah, to your point, it was like after the failed attempts, it was like, maybe I want that dream and I feel like that's for me, but like, maybe I'm not qualified. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe I'm whatever. Maybe I'm flawed. And maybe my family's right. And that was a very sad, like, I did not want, I was going to do everything and anything possible to not fall into that. And that was a tough battle in my head though.
So that battle is going on. You get going, and the process for launching a Real Producers franchise, it's no secret to pretty much anyone who's either received the magazine or knows much about us, is that we meet with the people who are going to be receiving the magazine, typically the top 500 realtors in a city, and we meet with them ahead of time, as many as we can, to let them know this is what's coming, this is new to your territory, and to find out who we should feature and what businesses we should partner with. And so as you get these referrals of specific businesses who are being referred by the realtors who are going to be on the cover and actually read this thing, they're still not taking a chance on Jordan or Real Producers. Now, this is 8 years ago, but you went 0 for 40 in a world where most people would have been between 5 and 10 sales for their first 40. And you were just as talented and just as hungry and hitting your pill. I remember you told me years later, you were telling me you were getting on online monster.com or jobsearch.com and I just hedging your bets. What happened on 41 that was different in the first 40?
People ask me that and I don't have like a definitive answer other than I think God puts us through certain like trials and my journey is different than everybody else's journey. And I just think that I was always tweaking, and obviously we were doing our coaching calls. I was always trying to find out like, what is it? But I think, I don't know. I kind of look back and think like maybe God was just giving me a test, to how bad do you really want it? And it is so much sweeter when there's some people that get sales on the first appointment. And I think that might be the worst thing that could be for an area director, is to like go do their first sales appointment and get a sale. Like I think that could have been the worst thing for me. And so I don't know, man. I think it was just a matter of just like, sometimes you're not doing anything wrong. It's just a matter of reps. And I needed at least 40. So.
Yeah. Well, and to bring the story full circle, you and I flew down to Dallas, what was it, 2 years ago to attend your SB event with over 800 people in the room. To this day, one of the most attended local events that Real Producers has ever had. It was super fun to be there. And we told the quick version of that story on stage. And I believe the first sale that you ever made was in that room right there. And you gave a nice little shout out. There's some tears there. Just a cool story. And now to get to where you're at, where you're top 10 in the company with over 155 franchises, is just kind of bananas. So you've spoken on many, you not only that, but you've held coaching roles in the Real Producers, global company and all these different things. And you speak a lot about overcoming obstacles. What did you learn between number 41, doing that first sales appointment that you actually got the sale, and getting to print? And what did you learn along the process of staying the course? Like you said, God puts you through a test, like how bad do you want it? And once I would assume once these other businesses who took a pass on you started seeing your success, you probably went back to the first 40 and made a bunch of sales later in life. I mean, I've always said, at least in the indie market, like no one's truly a no. If they're going to continue calling on the top realtors, there's no better place to put their money. So we're eventually going to work with you. So treat everyone with respect because it's going to come back around. I know that you've seen massive success in the Dallas market. What kind of happened since then?
Oh, it's been crazy. My life, I feel like I need a telescope to look back to 2018. It's like, I get emotional thinking about it because it's just like I've shared this with you, just like how grateful I am for you to be the person that pioneered this, to take a chance on this, because what you ended up pioneering and creating has changed my life like more than I can even say. The fact that like, yes, financially, of course, like it's been incredible, like financial time, money, freedom that I've never dreamed for myself. But like, I think I needed to get out of Minnesota into Texas and meeting those people and finding Jesus and then like through the company, finding my now wife, who was an area director. And now we have this kid and we built our home and like, I'm in such a different place. I'm read my Bible almost every single day. And I'm just like in such a different headspace. And, Romans says, rejoice in your sufferings, because that's where your hope, your endurance, and your strength come from. And I'm paraphrasing, but like, I think, it's in the suffering that we find our strength, we find our joy, we, find more meaning in life. And, someone said, if you want to, if you do what's easy, life will be hard. If you do what's hard, life will be easy. And, for me in the Real Producers franchise, it was going through all that. And even after I got that first sale, it was like I had a little bit of success. I went to print, and then I actually lost a couple big clients because they went out of business and all this. And actually, I was not like, I was barely getting by. And so it wasn't until probably a year after starting that it really like transformed and changed. But I think, those challenges were so needed for me. And it's easy for me to now, like, I often reflect back on that. I'll look back. I think it's so important to like use your pain as a motivator, because like I feel very like happy with my life. I'm very grateful. I always say I'm grateful, never satisfied, but like I'm grateful for where I'm at. But it can be easy to be complacent. I think that's the double-edged sword with Real Producers is like, it can be easy to be, you make X amount of dollars, and it kind of can, for at least a period of time, it can roll on its own. And that it's if you don't find the way to keep the fire, you can lose it pretty quick. And I think for me, it's like reminding, like I spend time praying and meditating every morning, and I reflect back on my 0 for 40. I reflect back on the time I was super depressed and anxious and even suicidal, and the pain I was in. And I use that as like, I don't dwell on that, but I remind myself of that. Like, hey, look how far we've come. And like, I think no matter how far we've come, we always have a tendency to slip back, right? We can always slip back into like, and we all have tendencies of where we came from, where we grew up, how we behaved, whatever it may be. And like, I think unchecked, our flesh takes over and we fall back to the default. And I think for me, my default is not a place I want to go. And so like, I want to remind myself all the time, like, this is where we were. Remember how bad that hurt. Remember how dark it was. And that gets me to get up, to move forward, keep taking action, yes, it sucks to set the appointments and to do the things that we need to do to be successful. But like, that sucks a whole lot more. You know what I mean? Like going there sucks a whole lot more.
I know a little bit more about your backstory, and we're not going to get into a lot of like personal stuff, but I do know that you're a pretty healthy guy. You're very fit, and you care about the food you put in your body, the sleep you get. We talk about health a lot, and you've had a lifelong battle with health issues. Not deep issues all the time. Some things are little, but like I know you're dealing with something right now that is maybe kind of minor, but a little scary. When you deal with things that are not necessarily always in your control, and that's the obstacle that comes, like entrepreneurship. Like once I realize I can control my own destiny within entrepreneurship, and I have a high risk tolerance, there's a makeup of an entrepreneur that says, okay, you can have peace knowing that if you put in the effort, the results will come. It's not necessarily like that in life though. Like there's certain pieces of life where like you can do what you're supposed to do, and you're still going to have health complications because our bodies are broken, and this is an imperfect world. What are the steps you take? And then this might be a hard question to answer, but like, what do you do when like life throws you lemons in that personal stance, when you don't necessarily have the same control that you have in your business? What do you do in just normal life challenges?
Jesus, baby. No, I mean, really though, it's like there is so much that we can control, and with those controllables, like I think we should do everything that we can to, I know how many appointments I can set. I don't know how many sales I can get, but I know how many appointments I can get, and I can take the activity. And to your point, that gives me some sense of peace and comfort knowing that I'm taking the steps that I can take. But there's so many variables, and if you put it all on your own shoulders to get the health result, to get the relationship result, to get the sales result, like if you put that all on you, you're making a huge mistake, because you can't control all that. You know what I mean? Like there's so much variability within all of that. And so like, if you ever want, I don't want success and be like anxious. I don't want to have a lot of money and be anxious. I don't want to have, great relationships, but like be, depressed or insecure or all that. I mean, we can feel all those things, but like, I'm going to always take the steps that I can take. But for me, it's like that I truly have, again, I said it earlier, but like we all have a God-sized soul within us, and no amount of success, no amount of relationship, no amount of anything can like fill that. And I don't envy grind culture. I don't envy like people who are like, worked 80 hours this week and all that. Like, I don't want like, I want success, but I want a well-rounded life where I get my time. I have my money. I can take trips. I have great relationships. I'm healthy. Like I want all those things, but like more than any of that, like I want to live a life that has meaning. That's like, I'm fulfilled. And I'm 35 years old, and I've in the last 3 years learned that the only way I can do that is to put my faith in Jesus and follow him and surrender to him, because that's the only way you can have peace, man. That's success, right? Being at rest in your soul. Oh my gosh. Like there's nothing better than that.
What I found about faith is like you're talking, if you blend that with your original answer of control what you can control, because there's lots of factors you cannot control. If you say control what you can control, your faith is something you can control. Your prayer life, the things that you choose to focus on is what you can control. And if you just control, like I have OCD and it's nasty sometimes. Like I can latch on to the worst part of my life or worst part that's going on in a family member's life, and it could consume me if I let it. And even if you don't have OCD, you can do that. But the choice to control what you can control is where your mind goes with this. It's really interesting because this podcast for the entire year, there's always like a theme that I don't control. Like it just kind of comes up because we're talking about it so much, is like, how do you show up amidst trauma and tragedy? So like, I mean, we're all dealing with it. Like every single person you come in contact with today has something on their mind, in the back of their mind, whether they realize it or not, that is a potential fear or something that is happening that is keeping them from just living total bliss. Like every single person has that thing. And there's a spectrum of how they're dealing with it by the time they come in contact with you. And so that interaction is kind of two worlds colliding, whether it's an email or, passing someone on the street or having an actual meeting with someone. It's just really, really good to like do a self audit at the end of the day. At least I have been doing this recently, is like, if someone goes home today or someone is recounting their day with their spouse and my name comes up, was it a positive interaction? Was it fruitful? Was it something that made them a better person? Or was it a pretty negative? And, that's it's pretty eye-opening when you do that. I have two last things to talk about. The first one is RP Elevate. I'm going to jump ahead to this because it's in your neck of the woods. RP Elevate, our first national event, is at September 29th and 30th, Lowe's Arlington, brand new hotel. What are you excited about hosting, being the host publisher for the first annual RP Elevate?
I think it's going to be sweet, man. There's always nerves with anything time you do something new. It's like the first time you hosted an event for real producers, right? The first time I ever did. It's like, I think it's going to be great. And then, you and I both, I know like our first events were amazing. And so I have faith knowing that we've all done this before. It's a totally different scale. But every single person that I talk to is like so pumped about it. I know we have sales that have been rolling in and like people getting tickets and I get excited for like what it could be. The first one's always like the test ground, but I like the idea of like envisioning out and saying, I think this could be the premier real estate event, across the nation each and every year. That's broker agnostic, right? Like EXP has their thing and KW has their thing, but like for top agents across all brokerages, like I really think that this has the potential to be the go-to conference every single year.
Yeah, totally. You said it. I think that like if I plan on going to any type of event, the agenda, there's always an agenda, and that's okay. But if you go to a Keller Williams event, a Remax event, the agenda is to strengthen your belief in the company and the resources that they create for you. And I think there's a time and place for that. If I was a realtor and I was a part of the brokerage, I would go to my I think national conferences are awesome. Like, I want to strengthen my relationships and knowledge about that. The difference between us and any other brand agnostic event is that I think we are kind of the leaders, the thought leaders and hope of the industry. I don't want to name any names, but there's a lot of other third-party, events and products where it's clickbait material, it's tabloids, it's focusing on the wrong things, or it's just like getting, like I said, clicks. Whereas, like, we want the clicks, but we want you to leave with hope in the industry. Like, the whole purpose of Real Producers is to strengthen the community of realtors and strengthening the bond between the vendor and the realtor, and giving the realtors, recognition-based marketing where they don't pay for a single thing. That doesn't exist anywhere. And so if we follow that model with the national event, this being the first one, I think we're going to see a completely different type of vibe between the top 5% of agents in the entire country in one room. So I'm pretty pumped about it too, man. Where I want to end the show today is one of your most epic speeches you've ever given. I've asked you to give it 100 times. Maybe you can give us the speed version of it now. But it's the drink, don't think mentality that came from a really interesting event you had with your dad. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, there's the drink, don't think that people like them to figure it out. But, I think so. The drink, don't think, Remy, you've had me tell, I don't know how many times, to other area directors and on calls and stuff like that. But it's kind of a funny story. But it has a good meaning behind it. And, my dad and I went to, so back in, when was it, 2015, my dad and I went to the middle of the Peruvian jungle for a week with 40 people from around the country to do an ayahuasca retreat, which I don't know if anyone listening knows what ayahuasca is, but it is an ancient herbal medicine that tastes like the worst thing you've ever had in your life, but it's a powerful hallucinogenic that you're supposed to meet Mother Ayahuasca, and it takes you on this whole journey, and you're supposed, it's a nightmare. So you don't do it for fun. Like, it's not like, an enjoyable thing that you do. I mean, you literally meet some of your deepest, darkest fears head on and all this. Anyways, my story is actually not related to ayahuasca. One morning they had us do what's called a tobacco purge. So we wake up in like this wooden hut. It's in Malacca. We're in the middle of the jungle. My dad and I are out there, and they're like, hey, today we're going to do a tobacco purge. And we're like, what is that? They come in with literally like big old buckets of warm tobacco juice. And they're like, they set in front of us a huge cup and a puke bucket. And I'm like, okay, well, this is getting interesting. And the intention was that we were going to drink as much of this tobacco juice as we could, because if you, the idea was purging was like cleansing. It was a cleansing thing, physically, but also spiritually. And so their thought was, I mean, if you drink tobacco juice, you're going to puke. However, the challenge is if you don't drink enough, you will leave tobacco juice sitting in your stomach and you'll feel sick and queasy for like days. And so you need to drink enough so that you puke enough so that you actually feel good, which sounds silly. And so what they did was they would scoop up this cup and they would hand it to you. And I mean, we're talking like cups, like they're maybe not quite this big, but they're big cups. And they would make you drink it, and they're in your face, go, come on, man, drink, don't think, like drink more, like drink, don't think. And you're drinking it and it tastes like crap and you're starting to feel queasy. You finish that cup and they do another cup and they put it in your face and they're yelling at you, drink, don't think, come on, like drink, don't think. And I mean, I don't even know how many of those we put down, but again, and then you actually would start puking and then they still want you to keep drinking more. I mean, it was an absolute nightmare. But again, the concept of if you didn't drink enough, you would not get this out of your system and you would feel sick for quite some time. And, when I'm giving this speech to other area directors, it's the whole concept of like, if you don't take enough action, right? A lot of us feel sick and queasy because we're not getting the results that we want. But that's because we're just sipping the tobacco juice. You got to put that thing down. You got to go full throttle. And if you take enough action, then you will get the result. And so, there was a whole slogan for a long time and there probably still is with real producers of like, drink, don't think. So like, you need to make those calls. Like, don't think about it. Like, cause if we think about it, we're going to be caught in inaction and analysis paralysis. Right. And so it's like, don't think about it. Like, you know what you need to do, just go do it. Like, don't just go. Drink, don't think. And so that's the story. That's the encouragement, is like, we all know the action steps that we need to take. Stop overthinking it and just go do it. Because if you don't, you're going to sit in inaction and you're going to feel sick. You're going to feel queasy. You're going to feel anxious, and you're not going to get the result that you want.
And that right there is honestly the key ingredient to one of, if not the key ingredient to what we've been talking about all along, which is, you went 0 for 40, but the biggest difference between your 0 for 40 when you first got in the company and someone else's 0 for, however many, 20, even if it was half as much, is it would take someone a really long time to get to that 20. It's the inaction that made them unsuccessful. You were able to get out of that funk way quicker than most people because of the action that you took. And so it's crazy. Every time you've given that message on a Monday call for people who are in preprint that need that extra motivation, immediately they across the board would have biggest results that we've had as a company in terms of how many first appointments that they would do, and they would put in the text chain, drink, don't think. So we definitely need to get t-shirts made up, drink, don't think. Jordan, this is phenomenal, and I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your thoughts on overcoming obstacles. I think it's something that every single person, regardless of where we're at in the industry, are going to face on a day-to-day basis.
It was my pleasure, man. I'm glad we were able to make it happen. I appreciate you inviting me on.
This has been the Real Producers Podcast. If you found that one person can learn something or be impacted by what Jordan Espeseth said, please send it to that person right now. And if you want to impact who we have on the show or what we talk about, email us at podcast@realproducersmag.com. We'll see you next time.